I'm Reverend Jim Keat. I'm the Minister of Digital Worship and Education at the Riverside Church and the Director of Online Innovation at Convergence. They are both made-up sounding titles because we made them up. I don't know ministry without a digital thing involved, partly because I don't know a world without technology of these things. I was born the same day as the very first cell phone call, so me and the cell phone have literally grown up together. We're not sure who caused which one to come into the world, but you're welcome for both of us. So I just haven't known how to do ministry without exploring digital stuff. It has never felt like ministry and then I need to think of what to do in online or digital spaces. It's just been like, that's part of the world I've only ever known. So I think back to like when I was a youth pastor at a big church in West Michigan. It was called 56. It was for 5th and 6th graders. We would make 56 in 56 seconds for the parents to have so they could know what their kids were going to be experiencing that coming Sunday. And we do it in 1 minute, 56 seconds for the small group leaders. Like, how do I just use digital stuff to equip people and have that? Because people don't read emails. So that kind of stuff. I was in seminary. They made me learn Greek and Hebrew. I taught myself HTML and CSS because I thought they would be more useful languages for the future of the church. I know them all equally. Like I can parse a Hebrew root stem and I can a little bit of Greek and I can hack a WordPress plugin, but not fluent in any of them, but enough to be like, I know where to go. But it was that inclination of like, these digital spaces have to just be explored. So that led to lots of things. I could give a list of projects. When I finished seminary, I had more time in my life suddenly because seminary takes time. I did a project called 30 Seconds or Less, which was like a daily short form 30-second video. It turned into audio project, turned into video project. I've done podcasts. There was one I did at Middle Church called That'll Preach. Now there's one at Riverside called The Word Made Fresh. It's a weekly sermon prep video podcast kind of a thing. There's an ongoing project right now called Bible in a Minute, which is exploring the entire Bible, one chapter, minute, day at a time, from Genesis to Revelation, to inspire people to read the Bible, teach them something new about it, and most importantly, model what it looks like to read and interpret the Bible from a progressive and liberative lens. I go running just as a human and I turn that into content because why not? And a lot of it has to do with theology and politics because I think often the running world doesn't always engage in these conversations. If they might want to, they don't know how. So it's kind of the like mashup of my realities. And I play on all the platforms for this, except for X. I have evicted that from my life. And I don't really do much in Threads except for the times when Instagram auto posts there because that just happens. And Facebook has always been a necessary evil ever since I've had to rejoin it. So that's a good survey, I think. YouTube is the greatest thing in the world. That's the. Why do I do it all? I love thinking of that. And I was thinking of that in a new way leading to these conversations. I've listed all the stuff I do. And there's things like open Bible study on Zoom at Riverside, virtual coffee hour on Zoom with the sermon talkback after the Sunday worship service, the ways we engage people during worship, intentionally for interaction and engagement, not just peeking through the window and watching. All the projects, which is more asynchronous. I like to just make digital sandbox stuff and see what can happen and do it with friends. To me, the through line behind it all has been like hoping to reclaim what theology and spirituality can mean for a fresh and life-giving and maybe even world-changing or saving way. Not just letting the loudest voices co-opt it for whatever they've had their agenda to be, but to say being a person of faith doesn't mean you have to be a person of antiquity. You don't have to live with what beliefs and practices used to be just because you hold to traditions that are thousands of years old. I think they can and should be living now and in the future. Like, I'm still a Christian, at least I think so. I haven't given up on this whole thing, and I don't think I should have to. But it doesn't mean it needs to look the way it used to look. And I feel like the digital stuff has an easier access point, an easier way of engaging people where and how they are, so that they might not ever want to step into that white church with the tall steeple that is reinforcing literally harmful and death-threatening theology, but they might encounter a fresh perspective on theology and spirituality and what it means to encounter this thing we call God through these devices and taps and swipes. So hope was my word I came up with. I have hope that this whole project and experiment called Christianity in the church isn't over or worthless. And I hope that the internet can help us do that. I wish I could pause time to do more things or require less sleep or just have greater capacity. Maybe it's how do I prioritize would be the question. Because I have always felt like I have more ideas than I know what to do with. So it's always the tension of which ones should I do? How do I do them well? How do I do them my version of what I think is well? I think perfection is a myth. There's no such thing as doing something 100% because that's a moving target. So just aim for 80% and call it good enough. That's Hank Green's philosophy. So I wish I could do more of focusing on what I should do less of, maybe, because my inclination is to always do more. I guess, how do I build better infrastructures to not feel like I'm doing all the things? Maybe I should do more asking for help so I don't do it all alone. Maybe this is turning into good therapy. I like this. I wish I could do more YouTube, long-form creative YouTube content, because I just like that, and I think we need it. I've always asked the question, like, what if Casey Neistat went to seminary? Like that kind of filmmaking and engaging people in such a creative and well-crafted way that's not just for branded video content or fun storytelling. And I love Casey's stuff, but like, what if like John Green and Casey Neistat merged into the same person? Like, where's that? Is there a space for that kind of compelling, well-crafted, longer form content on a place like YouTube? And what does it take to make it? What does it take to sustain it? So I don't know, and I don't have the capacity to go all in and do it yet, but I may be trying that soon with a new project, so we'll see. I think if seminaries want pastors and leaders to be equipped for now and the future, I think some of that has to do with like examining what do we see as essential training for ministry, which I think has been necessary for a long time because no one ever taught me anything about budgeting, church finances in seminary. So that's some practical stuff. But I think just as needed as those practical things are, would be some of the practical pieces about how do you navigate an ever-changing digital landscape where technologies are always outdoing themselves. It can feel like you don't even know where to begin, or the thing you learned is suddenly irrelevant because there's a new technology. So just a very tactical, like we teach tactics on preaching. We teach like, here's models and here's examples, and we teach more than one. So where is that when it comes to just how to engage in digital stuff, as well as kind of the theological and ethical lens as well? I think if you just do the one, you're missing it. You're just training people to be good tech users, but you're not teaching them how to think about how they do it. So I think the two have to go hand in hand. You need a practicality of which button to push, and then a theology of how does the camera lens in front of me change the whole experience for me and for others. So I think part of that is seminaries just recognizing the need and then probably staffing themselves differently, because the fantastic professors from the past might not be the necessary professor for the future unless they're willing to be trained and do the thinking on that, or unless you're Heidi Campbell, and she's doing it already. So the internet became a public thing in the mid-90s, and most of the world thought it was a fad. And, even into the early aughts, there was still kind of this, how is the internet being used? Is it good, bad, indifferent? I remember in 2015, 2012, somewhere in there, back when Twitter was still a fun thing to play in, tweeting, virtual isn't the opposite of real. It's the opposite of physical. They're both real. And back in like 2012, it was like, yeah, whatever, crickets, interesting. And then March 2020, I went back and found that tweet and retweeted it. Oh my goodness, what a revelation. Because at that point was a tipping point when the whole world was forced into these online spaces to suddenly realize that being on a Zoom call, while it's different, it's not like fake. It's not inauthentic. It's not like it's a subpar version of community. In some ways, it's an augmented version of community. People who had no ability to be in connection or community because of whatever accessibility limits now could do it. And I would say that Zoom calls have built-in name tags. So you always know who the person you're talking to is, rather than that fake, like, do I know your name kind of fake that we've all done. And you get a glimpse of their house. You get to see their apartment, their home, whatever it is. And that tells me. So I think we all got thrown into the deep end, and we realized that this isn't just a Band-Aid, and it's not just a possibility, it's a necessary reality. So that makes me think. It's been true since the 90s, but it's more realized true now. I think that all of these things with the internet is probably the greatest communication shift that the church and the world, but the church as a symptom, has experienced since the invention of the printing press. And I think we've always needed to take it seriously, and I think this will compel us or mandate us to do that. Just like the printing press fractured Christianity, are we ready to see that happen again? Because the printing press was literally the hammer that made the pamphlets available so that, this thing called Luther didn't start the Reformation. You know, there were other reformers before him, but somehow the collision of that individual and this technology is the thing that made it happen, and the crack finally splintered and broke.
Yes.
That's happening. Are we aware of it? Are we willing to let it happen? What will we see? And it's not like the Reformation killed the church as in it's gone, but it changed the church in a way that can't ever be repaired or got back to.
Yeah.
So I just think that's the inevitability of what we're seeing. And I think if we try to just make the church great again, we're only going to be living in a past that's only in the past rather than what is inevitable here and now. So the greatest possibility for the church today when it comes to apps and platforms, yes, YouTube, I think, is essential in the longevity, the ability to embed it everywhere. It has so much sticking power and little less drama than other platforms. I think the ability to write a good email and have a good email database system is essential. Whether it's using MailChimp or Benchmark or Substack, because I think it's the question of how do you reach people without having to go through an algorithm? And I think any other content system is typically distributed by the algorithm. Email is still one of the ones that, for the most part, isn't. I can get it right too. Texting was the other way to do that too, but there's a different cost often involved in direct texting platforms. And I think churches have often sent emails, and churches have notoriously sent some of the worst emails. It's just a laundry list of all the things. There's no thought to why we're sending it, who we're sending it to, when we're sending it. Like, I often ask myself, what are the emails I get from institutions and organizations that I actually read? Like, how many do I just immediately archive and think, I don't even have time to unsubscribe, I'm just going to immediately archive this? And which ones do I actually open up and read, and why? What about that makes me want to read it? So I think if a church takes seriously how they can reach people directly without having to try to hack an algorithm to get to them, that's essential. Now, you're not going to grow organically from that. You're not going to be distributed to someone's email address you don't have, so there's limitations. That's why I think you have to always live in multiple platforms of how do you reach new people, and then how do you reach the people you've already connected with. And if you don't have an intentional strategy for either of those things, you're probably not really going to do either of those things. Building community in online spaces, I think one is like dedicated spaces for it. Circle, Mighty, Discord, which I'm at Riverside exploring and playing and haven't quite decided if or how, because I think that goes to things like just where can people go to have those connections. So like at Riverside, we have a lot of people who engage in the live chat Sunday morning worship. It's great. It's a good community, YouTube live chat, but there's no way to like reach out directly to that user or to like easily go back and follow up or it's a kind of a ephemeral conversation. You can go back and replay it and watch it, but it's not really an experience for that. Or we have groups on Zoom from people online all over the country and the world in before and after worship for Bible study and virtual coffee hour. And we have great connections in that hour together. But then the call ends and there's no like easy follow-up. There's the Zoom chat, but that's kind of just again in the moment. So I think things like Discord, Circle, Mighty would become a container where those kinds of conversations can happen beyond the live moment. So that's one. And I think the other, to go back to the emails, I'm planning on borrowing what Natalie Owens Pike at Fifth Avenue Presbyterian Church does. She's a digital minister there, and she has a weekly email she sends just to the online congregation. So people opt in to, and she's the digital minister, so it lets her share stories from the online community with others. It allows her to share specific online activities that they should be aware of, as well as just how to get in touch with her to follow up. So I'm like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do it once a month to start because I don't want to do something weekly that I don't know if I can sustain. So I want to try to not only be intentional about the mechanisms by which people online can connect with one another, but then how am I connecting with them and giving avenues for them to connect with me as a pastor? And I hope that can help, but I haven't tried it yet, so I don't know, but that's my hunch.